she went into like a whisper, and she was like, I didn't think I could do it, Joey. I didn't think I could do it, but I didn't think I could do it. And it was just weird because it was in a whisper and almost sounded like she was proud of herself.
Can you afford to hire your own attorney?
I think my brother is going to do it.
Don't let her shy and timid voice fool you. This is a cold-blooded killer who heartlessly murdered her stepdad and then waited 24 hours for her mom to come home so she could finish her off too. But what would make her do something so awful? Let's look into the case of Nicole Nachman, the teen who murdered her parents after years of abuse. Nicole Nachman, or Nikki, was born in Houston, Texas on February 11, 1994. Her mom, Miriam Deans, and her dad, Ronald Nachman, were never married because at the time they got together, Miriam was going through a divorce from her first husband, Joseph Carey Sr., with whom she had 2 sons, Joseph Jr., popularly known as Joey, and Kevin Carey. However, things did not work out between Miriam and Ronald, and they separated when Miriam was pregnant with Nicole. When Nikki was born, a custody battle ensued that ended with Miriam getting full custody of her daughter. Life at home was not really that stable for the children, and at some point, Nikki's eldest brother, Joey, decided to go live with his grandmother until he graduated from high school and joined the Air Force. The other brother, Kevin, unfortunately died in a tragic car accident, leaving Nikki alone with her mother. The relationship between Nikki and her mother was pretty unhealthy. Nikki would complain that Miriam was often belittling her and calling her a disgrace. She never felt like she was good enough because her mother would criticize her weight, how she walked, and everything she did. At one point, Nikki said that Miriam called her an overweight skank and forced her to undergo liposuction. This really messed up her self-esteem, and she started struggling at school. By the time she graduated high school, she had attended 13 different schools. She went on to enroll at Florida State University in Tallahassee and pursue a degree in public relations. At some point through all of this, Miriam got remarried to Robert Dinez, or Bob as he was popularly known, and settled in Tampa, Florida. In the summer of 2015, Nikki, who was 21 at the time, had just completed her freshman year at the university and was back at home for summer break. During that period, she went to visit her brother Joey, who now lived in Washington State with his wife and kids. As Joey would later say, everything seemed fine.
While she was there that summer of 2015, did she ever discuss any issues with you about your mom?
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Nothing, just typical.
Did she ever mention to you that she was concerned about your mom or concerned about their relationship or anything that she was worried about?
No.
Did she ever discuss with you any issues at school or things that were going on at school, problems she was dealing with at school?
I mean, on that specific visit, I don't remember typical problems, bullying or whatever.
Okay, so she did confide in you some things, but anything that caused you alarm or concern at that point?
No.
But then, Nicole would go on to do something that would leave everyone completely horrified. On August 20th, 2015, at around 9:20 p.m., Wesley Rowe, who lived next door to Robert and Miriam Dinez, was having a quiet evening with his family when all of a sudden he heard what sounded like gunshots coming from outside his house.
And I was kind of thinking maybe, there were some kind of kids outside, doing fireworks or goofing off or something. So I didn't know exactly what it was. I basically walked out to our living room to see what was going on, and I kind of heard like a scream. It wasn't a kid's scream, it was kind of scream of, agony or disbelief. And next thing I saw was a shadowy figure run between the 2 windows in our living room towards back to that lake.
At this point, Wesley wasn't really sure what was going on, but he decided to call 911 and reported that suspicious activity. But after he had finished speaking with the dispatcher, he looked out the window and saw something that led him to immediately call 911 again.
Yeah, that's all there is on gunshots at my house, and it looks like I'm looking out the front yard. It looks like somebody at the end of our driveway got shot or something. They're like laying on the ground.
An officer rolled in a few minutes later, and he would later describe finding an eerie scene. The streets were well lit, but there was no movement or anyone in sight. except for a sole white female body lying in a driveway.
The body was towards the end of the driveway. The head, upper body of the area was closer to the roadway itself, while the feet were pointed up towards the garage of the residence, towards closer up on the driveway itself.
So after you park your vehicle, do you go straight to this female?
I do.
Did you see any movement at all from the female?
No, ma'am.
The lady would later be identified as 56-year-old Miriam Dinez. She had 3 bullet wounds, 1 in the head and 2 in the abdomen. She also had some abrasions on her forehead, which she could have gotten from falling on the ground. The officer checked her pulse, but she was already gone. As officers started going through the neighborhood, checking for suspicious activities, they made another shocking discovery. In a house just next to where the woman was found, they found another body, covered with a blanket. This time it was a male, 67-year-old Robert Dinez. He had a single bullet wound at the back of his head. A pathologist said that there were no defensive wounds. This means he probably didn't even know that he was being shot. But who would do this, and why? As is often the case in homicide investigations, detectives started by talking to the people closest to the victims to see if they might have any information that would help find the killer. And the closest person in this case was Nicole. Neighbors told detectives that they had seen her around the house a few days before the shooting, so the lead detective found her phone number and called her.
This is Detective Messer. I'm with the Sheriff's Office in Westford County. I'm spotted actually that you answered. Are you okay?
I got called from the medical.
Okay, and I was just going to tell you, I called your spoke to your uncle and spoke to your grandmother, and I want to make sure you're okay, obviously, but I guess your uncle told you what's happened?
Can you go to the hospital?
Well, she's not doing very well. But I needed to talk to you. He had said that you had been staying at your grandmother's house. I guess.
I do it sometimes, but like, I live in Tallahassee.
At first, Nicole said that she had been at school in Tallahassee for the past 2 days and didn't know what was going on. But when the detective asked to see her, she started acting kind of shifty, telling the detective that she didn't have the address of her dorm and would have to call back with the information. But she never did. After talking with the detective, Nicole received another call from her brother Joey, who wanted to find out how she was doing. But instead, she made a chilling confession.
She says, I shot him. I said, you did what? Like, I shot Mom and Bob. I said, and I remember leaning forward. On the couch and saying it again. I was like, what do you mean you shot Mom and Bob? I was like, why'd you do that? Or something to that effect. And she just started crying really bad.
Apparently, Nicole was late in signing up for student housing at FSU and was afraid that her mom would get mad when she learned about it. So instead of telling her mom, she came up with a messed up plan to kill her. Nicole's mom, Miriam, was out of town for a work event the night that Robert was murdered. Nicole came home from school, took Robert's gun, which was in a drawer beside his bed, and then, as her stepfather was watching TV, she snuck up on him and pulled the trigger. And like that's not already bad enough, she actually hid his body and then drove her car nearly 2 miles away so that her mom wouldn't see it when she got home, and she would take her by surprise. She went on to wait 24 hours for her mom to arrive the next evening. But when she finally arrived, Nicole apparently got cold feet and attempted to sneak out the window.
And she mistimed it and ran into my mom. And my mom said, Nikki, what the f*** are you doing here? And she said she blacked out and somehow she knows she did it. And then I don't remember if she said she was in the car driving or she was getting to the car to drive away.
Nicole also told her brother that she had been hearing screaming voices in her head for some time, telling her to commit the murders, and that when she finally did it, the screaming stopped. But she also said that after she killed her stepdad, she received a call from the university telling her that they had found accommodations for her, saying that if they had called earlier, she probably would not have done what she did. She went on to say that before killing her mother, she saw motivational posters around the school saying things like, "You can do it," and she took that as a sign that she needed to finish what she had done. Investigators would use Nicole's cell phone records and car GPS to connect her to the crime scene. They would also find her bloody fingerprint on a wall inside the house.
All right, well, 21-year-old Nikki Notchman, she's back in Hillsborough County, was arrested 3 days ago, charged with the murder of her own mother and her stepfather. She was arrested at Florida State University on Friday night.
We did just get that arrest affidavit in our hands, and what I can tell you is that there is a witness up at Florida State University. It's inferred that she may have been Notchman's roommate who came to police and said that the day that Notchman disappeared from campus, which was Thursday earlier in the afternoon, that Notchman had been saying that she was hearing voices in her head. They were screaming at her, telling them that she needed to kill her mother and her stepfather, and that she eventually saw a poster in their dorm room hallway that said, "Your dreams are about to come true." Now, according to this witness, it was after seeing that sign that Notchman disappeared from campus and had decided to come down here to Tampa Bay and kill her mother and stepfather.
Nicole was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, with the prosecution saying that the murders were premeditated. She knew what she was doing and even tried to cover up her tracks after the crimes. On the other hand, the defense argued that Nicole was a tortured soul who had suffered years of abuse from her overbearing mother until she finally snapped. They brought in a psychiatrist who testified that Nicole suffered from bad child syndrome, which made her believe that her mother was going to kill her.
She goes over these incidents of physical abuse by her mom, the same incidents, and perseverates. What that means is it just keeps going over and over, and every time it's like fresh.
But if her problem was with her mom, as they claimed, then why did she have to kill her stepfather? They suggested that Nicole suffered from schizophrenia and was in a psychotic state and hearing voices when she killed Robert, and therefore didn't know right from wrong. However, the prosecution also brought in their own psychiatrist who testified that Nicole did not have battered child syndrome or had not shown any signs of schizophrenia.
Because she doesn't meet the criteria for schizophrenia. She doesn't have any of the symptoms. The hallucinations, she doesn't have any hallucinations. I asked her directly about symptoms consistent with schizophrenia. She denied that. I asked her about the screaming that I read in other reports. She denied that it was screaming. She said that it was a high-pitched tone that she heard.
In the end, the jury was not convinced by Nicole's defense, and after 12 hours of deliberations, they found her guilty of murdering her mom and stepdad. She was sentenced to life in prison. What do you think about this case? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, and if you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more.